In the face of adversity, 17-year-old Steven Valkenberg did not hold back. Brave from a very young age, he has carried the torch for South Africa on the international stage for wheelchair basketball. This is a story of his endurance, his fighting spirit, and his passion.
Steven's like a bit different to everybody else. He chooses to do his things differently and just uses his time differently. I was born in Polokwane. I stayed there for 5 years, but after the accident we came to Gauteng because there were better doctors.
My child was in an accident and it happened on my way to holiday, one of the few holidays that we took. We were on the highway other side of Bloemfontein and it happened so quickly, an old man fell asleep coming towards us. It did not take 2 seconds for my life to change. And in the accident, after the accident, I had chance to think about my life. My child was in a bed below me, paralyzed. I had a sister come to me after the accident, and they said he was totally paralyzed on the right-hand side of his body. I was shocked. My other child had just died in the same accident too. My husband was in ICU. They came to fetch me to say goodbye to my husband. I did have time to think.
I mean, it happened at such a young age. It happened when I was not even 2 years old. So it feels like I grew up with a disability, but I was always made aware by my parents that I am a bit different.
The Valkenberg's life was changed forever on that day. Doctors' reports proclaimed doom. Some of the challenges that he was to experience due to his brain injuries included speaking, reading, memory for written and spoken messages, controlling the right side of the body, and analyzing information.
After my accident, I was diagnosed with brain injury. A lot of blood had went to the head, so they drilled a couple of holes in my head to release the pressure. And doctors' reports, we went all over the world, and the doctors basically reported that I would not go further than grade 7 in the academic environment. And this was in a school that caters for people with special needs. So my mom took me to a lot of rehabilitation and a lot of occupational therapy and all these activities that could stimulate my mind. And I heard about a month before my school career was about to begin, the physio said, or the occupational therapist said that something just snapped and I'm ready for school. So she said, why not try him in an ordinary school and see what happens? And then from there we just tried it, and yeah, my marks, I'm above average, but I'm not the best.
Doctors came to me and said my child has pressure on his brain and has brain injury. They'll have to operate. I thought, what is God doing to me? I'm not used to this. My life was perfect.
Ke ile ka ba ashamed he ke mmona ngwana ke rich. Ke nthoma thomo ke thomang kopana le ena a le so. A kitse re ke tlo khona ho bereka le bona bjang ka a shinke ke no bereka le so le since my life. And le mo family ya ka a shinke ke no ba le ngwana o ileng hore or maybe motho e leng hore o holofetse disabled. So maraka lerato le modimo ka khopela modimo ka re modimo ke khopela o nthuse ke khone ho berekisana le batho ba pile.
When you all of a sudden faced with a disabled child, it's a shock. You know none of the vocabulary. You don't know about rehabilitation. You don't know about catheterization. You don't know about biokinetics. You've never dealt with things like this. And slowly but surely, I started my path, starting with physio and hearing more and more. Nobody else was there to tell me what to do. It was a journey I went on alone.
I knew I was always going to make it because he always pushes through the tough times. So I knew it was going to be fine.
My fighting spirit comes from my mom, because even when I was crying that I didn't want to go, she encouraged me to say, come, the benefits will eventually show. Just try it. do your best and see what happens. So a lot of my fighting spirit comes from my mom, because I was raised in an environment where anything's possible if you just work hard. And I guess after all this therapy and physio and all of that, I've seen the benefits. So I see that hard work can get you places.
Did you believe that Stephen will come here, will be where he is today? Say, Josina, that's a miracle. I don't believe. Karia, God is there for you. When you ask God, God will help you. And God will guide you. Kamuta kamrakara itsuruking kya leboga ka mokgo wena o ile wa se latlhe tshepo ya hao ka teng. Wa tshepa hore one day my child will be okay.
The accident took Stephen's brother's life, left Stephen paralyzed, and put his father in ICU. Difficulties followed with a series of operations that continued throughout his childhood.
When the times are that difficult, and you're spending so much time in hospital, and your child having operations, and being negative, and nobody wants to associate with your child, those are difficult times. But in the end, I'm actually at the stage now where I think, wow, what a journey.
I don't remember any of the bad incidents in hospital. I remember all the good times that I had, even if it is possible. Even if it's not considered possible to have good times in hospital, I do remember those. I only remember the really big ops, like my 8-hour ops or the 4 hours, or where I was fighting for my life. Those are the only times that I remember the hospital.
Being different in a schooling environment has its challenges. Stephen was no different, being the receiver of name-calling.
The most popular name that kids would call me was Penguin Boy, because when I walk, I'd sway from side to side, because I have no feeling in my lower legs or my upper legs. So the way I walk is my nerves regenerated from the hips to the knees, but the rest is just dead muscle. So I use my back and my abdominals to walk. So that forces me to sort of sway my upper body from side to side to sort of counterweight, to add the necessary counterweight to get the reaction going. So that's the only name that really stuck with me, was Penguin Boy.
He entered Crawford College in Pretoria when other schools did not want the burden of a paraplegic student. Crawford College took a chance on the talented Stephen.
Stephen Valkenbach was a young man that I was introduced to when I was senior deputy principal at Crawford, Pretoria. He was a young gentleman that was considering moving to the school that I was working at. And my first encounter with him was where he came for an interview to see if we would be able to accept him into our school. We have proficiency assessments to get into our school, so we had set up the appointment to meet, to have the test, but when we had initially met with him, his mom had discussed with us that he had certain physical challenges that had to be met. The biggest being that obviously mobility was an issue. He had limited mobility, was walking with crutches, used a wheelchair on certain occasions, and owing to the nature of a number of schools that were originally built to cater for mainstream children, there were a number of challenges that we would have to have considered before we had accepted him into the school. When I met Stephen for the first time, the biggest thing was his determination for him to be at our school. And the challenge set was that if he was able to overcome the challenge of just getting up to the administration block, we were already 50% of the way there.
Finding a school that I can go to with my disability and they'll cater for me is sort of the biggest challenge for my education. So it started with my pre-primary. We found that school. From there, all of my friends that I made in pre-primary school went to primary school, and then that's how I ended up at Waterkloof. But then it's just an incident took place and we had to leave Waterkloof. We went to Crawford. My mom, once again, they were one of the few schools that wanted to accept me because of my disability, because the principals there and the assistant principals were nice and caring. They weren't like your typical they weren't like your typical principals at schools. Other principals wouldn't want a disabled child at their school. So when I pitched up at Crawford, my mom said, do you like the school? I said, yeah, I love it here. I like the kids, I like the environment. So the principal asked my mom, do you think you'll cope? And my mom says, well, let's see. Stephen, walk up these stairs. If you can walk up these stairs, you can come to the school. And then, yeah, that's how it started. I just walked up the stairs.
The doctor said that he would not be able to finish the 7th grade. He attests his ambition to the resilience of his mother, who never gave up.
No nursery school wanted to take my child. And I didn't want to give up. I ended up with a nursery school in Brooklyn, where I actually taught for free and carried my child from class to class. And I taught Stephen, if you want to have the nice things in life, you have to work for it. And he was at Waterkloof Primary and he really wanted to go to Crawford. And I set him challenges. I said, before you can do that, you have to do a bit of work by your own. So when I did get to Crawford, I remember saying, you can't cope here if you can't climb these few stairs. He managed it, and I realized my child's going to be okay.
Stephen to me, he's my best friend, and I've known him since grade 3, so we've known each other for quite a while now. It started off with me just seeing him alone at breaks, and then I just decided to spend my time with him. Instead of going to play with my friends soccer, I would just spend my time with him, because I saw that I didn't have too many friends to play with. So that's how it all started.
Looking past his physical disability, Mr. Rothman ensured that his young student had all that he needed to have a successful career. Stephen looked up to Mr. Rothman as a mentor.
The principal was willing to, immediately when we arrived at the school, to make special facilities for Stephen, to have his own bathroom and to have a locker where he could lock up what he needed at school. He always had an open door and Stephen could go and talk to him. And they motivated Stephen, and they allowed him to be part of the grade 7 robotics club. They did not have to. And that's what Stephen appreciated, the opportunities he got at Crawford.
It was actually the only reason I think that I got accepted into Crawford, because he was one of those very few people that looked past my physical disability and looked at me for who I actually am. So I look up to him because of that, because he was willing to see past the physical boundary, and not many people actually want to do that. And he just motivated me and inspired me. If I was down and out, I could go speak to him, and he'd encourage me to do better and try my best.
The art and science that goes behind robotics is a gateway to seeing the greater possibilities of the human mind. Stephen created his first robot in 3rd grade, and with his friend went on to win the South African national colours in the World Robotic Olympiad in 2011 and 2012.
He started with the robotics when he was in hospital and had nothing to do. And I bought his first set of robots, Lego robots. And he built it, and I could see he was really fascinated about it. So I went to the shop where I bought that Lego, and they told me they give lessons. So I encouraged him to go to those lessons. And I always told Stephen, if you can't beat people by running, beat them in other ways. If they said in grade 2, let's have a running race, he'll say, okay, but after that, let's have a maths race. So I always gave him a comeback. If he said to me, I can't stand on my toes, I would say to him, you're going to be so tall you won't ever have to stand on your toes. So I always showed him the other side of it. And I taught him, the harder you work at anything, the better you will do.
My mom would always buy me Lego. She says that Lego is the best way to keep you busy. So when I was in hospital, I'd build these weird structures and all of that just to pass the time and get my mind off what was actually going on. So my mom bought a Lego Mindstorms kit for me the one day. This was a couple years back, about 6-7 years back. And I told her, why'd you buy it? I'm never going to be using it. She says, no, one day you will be using it. So when I went on holiday with my dad, she says, your dad's a very hard worker. He's going to say that you must try and keep yourself busy sometimes. Why don't you take this kit and see if you can build a robot? I said, okay. I was eyeing and staring at this kit the whole time. I didn't think I was actually going to get it done. And then the one day I opened it up, I built a robot, I taught myself to program, and from there it started. So I came back, this was all on holiday, so I came back from holiday, and 2 days later I had the principal of the school come in and saying, look, we're entering a robot competition, you will be the youngest in the club, but why don't you come try out? We heard you can build and program robots. So I thought, why not? And then from there I met my robotics teammate Simon. Him and I did incredible things. He was the best programmer that I can know. And yeah, we went to numerous robot Olympics. We placed first in the country a few times. And that's where the love started, and it's just an ongoing thing.
Sometimes he teaches me something about robotics, and I've never done that before. I've never been interested in that stuff before, because I'm just a outdoor type of person. I always like to play soccer and try new things, but robotics, something new, but I know a thing or two about it.
So right here I have a drone that I'm building. I'm trying to build drones that will be able to fly by themselves, be able to monitor surroundings, and if there's any suspicious activity in my garden or anything, it will notify the police.
Stephen, I'm proud of you. I'm very proud. Because every time he never have muisa di doctor my I can't believe. I can't cope. And I don't know how.
Stephen's fate would collide with chance in a random meeting. His basketball career blossomed quite quickly, playing in the provincial team and now being the youngest player to join the senior South African wheelchair basketball squad.
It actually started in the hospital. I had a sister who went to the chemist, and she bought a little foam ball. And she came up to Stephen, and to make him happy, she started throwing this ball to him. And he started catching with his left hand and laughing so much. So everybody got the instruction, when you go to Stephen, you throw a ball and let him catch. And I just always encouraged sport. I kept on throwing ball to him. I taught him to stand up and hit a cricket ball. I took him when he could stand for golf lessons. I even took him in his wheelchair and made him play tennis. Because I realized sport is a way of making you feel good. And one day he happened to go to Menlyn by chance, and somebody saw how fast he went with his wheelchair and came up to him and said, "Would you not like to try wheelchair basketball?" And he came home and he said to me, "Mom, don't be angry. I spoke to strangers at Menlyn, and he has a name, Aitan Ong, and he would like me to phone him and come to wheelchair basketball."
When I was a little child, I was about 4 or 6, and I was watching the Paralympics on TV, and I told my mom, one day I want to go be there. And then I kept on questioning her, like, how am I going to get there? Where do we start? And she says, well, look, I don't know. We're just going to have to see what happens and all of that. And then a couple of years back, I think it was 2010, I was in a shopping center in Menlyn, and I was playing a game with my cousins because they went out with me, and I was just pushing around Menlyn and doing tricks as fast as I can and all of that. And it was like 10 o'clock at night. I can't believe anybody actually was still there. But I was going past the restaurant Dross, and these guys were sitting there. So once my cousins got me, we walked back to the parking, and as on our way back, we were called by these people that were watching me. And they said, how would you like to try out for wheelchair basketball? I said, well, it's always been a dream of mine. I've always wanted to do wheelchair basketball. I mean, not basketball itself, but I've always wanted to be in a sport where my physical limitations didn't influence my performance at all. So, but yeah, I tried wheelchair basketball. I like all sports with balls, so basically all the sports. But the nice thing about wheelchair basketball is it takes a certain amount of skill. And to get that skill, you have to practice, and hard work has to go into it. And with my personality, that's the type of sport that I like, because I like working hard because I know hard work pays off eventually at the end of the day.
Stephen's involvement in basketball started again purely as an interest, as something that he knew he would be able to do. When we discussed it as well, I don't think Stephen even realized how well he would achieve when it came to this sport. Through discussion and that, as I said, initial interest was piqued. He started to get himself involved by going to watch, and I think was identified as somebody that had talent. The initial part was, I think, more a level of excitement to see this as a sport he could participate in, where previously he might not have been able to. And from there, the interest grew.
He made the under-23 squad at age 14 and the men's squad at age 16, the youngest player in the South African national team. Stephen has crafted his mark in the wheelchair basketball fraternity, traveling the world, representing his country with the Cecil Amawila Boys national wheelchair basketball team.
When we started the program in 2012, in fact, we lost 7 players from the previous national team just after the Paralympics. So we made the decision to start again with a young squad, and with some of the players who never have a chance because of the previous team was very strong, to have a chance to play for the national team. Stephen was one of the guys who started really with us, because he was already in under-23 team, but he was still very young. He was 14, but he can play. You can see it immediately. He can play, and so our job was to because he was always somebody who trained a lot, but not on the right way. So our first job was to explain him how to train. The commitment is nice, but if you do too much or not the right thing, it doesn't work too. So it was the first step, and the second step it was to change him as an outside player, because he was a strong baby. So to lose weight and to make him a wing player, so outside the key, because right now we're very proud to say that he can be a very beautiful outside shooter. So it was, as a coach, it's easy when the player follow, and he is the kind of player like that. He always asks, so you don't have to say, please, Stephen, you have to train today. No, he's coach. I finish. What can I do? So he make our life very, very easy.
Okay, this trophy I won about 2 years ago. It's the under-23 player of the year for Supersport. And this was my second year in Supersport, and this was the first time receiving this award. So my mom had to receive this award on my behalf, because I was with the under-23 national team in Turkey for the World Championships. Then over here we've got this guy. I won this one last year, and it's the trophy for the under-18 provincial MVP, so the most valuable player of the tournament. I think I averaged about 10 rebounds per game. I was the man of the match for each game, and I got double-doubles for each game.
He's young, but he's got a lot of talent. He's one of probably the most talented players in our country at the moment. And the fact that he's still so young gives him a great advantage. I started playing when I was 12. Stephen's been playing now for 3 years, I think, and he's only 17 now. So he's also started at a really young age. And he's got the right attitude. He takes instruction well, he learns as much as he can. He always tries to improve his game. So he's got the right attitude for the sport. And with the amount of talent he has, the sky's the limit. I think he's going to be one of the guys to watch out for in the future. He's probably going to end up being one of South Africa's top basketball players, probably soon.
Yeah, first met Stephen in 2013 when we were both in the SA under-23 team that went to represent South Africa in the World Championships in Turkey. First, we had to go through the African qualifiers, where we played Nigeria and Zimbabwe. So what I know most about Stephen, though I don't know the personal side of him, but he, when he's part of the team, he's one person who works hard and he pushes, he's one person who plays to win. That's basically one of the things I can say about him. He's a hard worker, he doesn't stop.
So I'm trying to prove a point that it is just a chair. It doesn't have to limit you in any regard. There's people at my basketball now that, yeah, they're in a wheelchair, but they're doing some of the top IT jobs in the country. So it's just, you must always try and push through the obstacles that limit you, as this will be your chance to grow. Just remember, there's always going to be people that are worse out than you, and they're doing much better than you. So yeah, just live your dreams and forget what people say. At the end of the day, there's a reason they're behind you. They're either there behind you to support you or bring you down. Hi, my name is Steven Volkenbach, and you're watching Dream Tracers.
Thank you.